You got what you were after, so pay up.
You're crying in the rain, Pally.
Guess who's waking up over here?
Time to cash out.
Will you get it over with?
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig? You've made your last delivery, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this scene. From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
So let me start this video by saying I love each Fallout game. I think each Fallout does something better in certain ways. For instance, I think Fallout 4 is amazing for its updated features like base building and weapon armor mobility. I also think Fallout 76, while flawed in many ways, is good for being a multiplayer experience to play with friends. Another one of these things is Fallout New Vegas doing storytelling better than any other modern Fallout game. Even more specifically, faction-based storytelling. Firstly, New Vegas spends a long time describing each faction over the course of the game. You learn about the NCR, how they're trying to claim Nevada for their own. Talking to members of the NCR and random citizens of the Mojave teaches you that they are incompetent and corrupt. They force communities to join while also taxing them heavily. They, however, are heavily against slavery and want to bring back rule of law. You learn of Caesar's Legion, a slaver nation built on the conquest of tribes. While you are led to believe they are nothing but bloodthirsty conquerors, however, only by talking to Caesar you learn of his philosophy on how the NCR is corrupt. Caesar wants to turn his nomadic army into a standing empire with New Vegas as his Rome. You learn that the members of his faction are all brainwashed devotees of Caesar. While it doesn't excuse their action, they are also victims of Caesar. When children are brainwashed from birth or as they watch the entire tribe be conquered and are taught to worship him. At the beginning of your journey, you learn of Mr. House, who leads New Vegas with an army of robots and tribals. His goal is to help mankind find new planets that aren't polluted. Mr. House is a capitalist who, if sided with, would lead the Mojave as an autocratic leader. This is all the information you get from your journey in doing quests for these factions. We'll be going over the quests related to these factions in section 2 of this video. They are all very much different in terms of ideology and each have their pros and cons. Compare this to Fallout 4 with the Minutemen, Brotherhood of Steel, Institute, and Railroad. Let's begin with the Minutemen. They are the generic good guy faction who want to help the people of the Commonwealth. You learn of the Quincy Massacre, where the Minutemen refused to aid the people of Quincy besides the group that you eventually meet and conquered. The Minutemen are just a lackluster faction that preach about helping, but won't help you get your son back until you become their general and claim a few settlements. Next onto the Railroad, and fucking boy are they an inept faction. In order to find their base, you follow red paint, all the while you learn of the password to their base, which in fact is their name, Railroad. Their entire mission is that they want to free the synths from the Institute. They are even more incompetent than the NCR, but unlike the NCR, the Railroad doesn't help the majority of the Commonwealth. They don't have the force to help anyone. You find them in their new headquarters, defeated after losing their old base of operations, which was a lot more defensible because it was quite literally a secret installation of the CIA under the Slocum's Joe. Another group you learn about is the Brotherhood of Steel because Bethesda doesn't know how to let go of the past. We learn more lore about this chapter of the Brotherhood because it's the same chapter as the Capital Wasteland. You learn that Arthur Maxton takes over the Brotherhood. He reintroduces the outcasts that split from the Brotherhood under Elder Lyons. He turns the Brotherhood into a militarist, anti-mutant faction. The Brotherhood also has the goal of eliminating the synths and the Institute as a whole. They deem them abominations, and as Elder Maxon says it, mankind's worst derailment. He wants to wipe out most mutants when that was never the Brotherhood's goal. You can say that was their goal in Fallout 1, but unlike every other group of mutants. The ones from Fallout 1 was mostly intelligent, and even after the fall of the Master and Lieutenant, they chose to let go of the goals of world domination. The Brotherhood never hated ghouls, unlike what Bethesda thinks. Lastly, the Institute is known as the boogeyman of the Commonwealth. They replace people with synthetic humans, all the while claiming they are the last hope of mankind. They are just as technologically savvy as the Brotherhood, while being a group of scientists instead of a militant group like them. The characteristics of the Minutemen, Railroad, Institute, and Brotherhood are bad or completely wrong. Bethesda doesn't really believe that the Brotherhood is supposed to be on decline. Look at Fallout 2 and the chapter in Fallout New Vegas. They both are in such terrible situations. Bethesda also forgets that the Brotherhood and NCR go to war and are completely wiped out. The Minutemen and Railroad are both incompetent to the point that they are almost wiped out as well. The Minutemen are the generic good guy faction, while the Railroad are not only incompetent, but they also act like children with code names, and the password to their base further speaks to this. The Institute, while decent on paper, is a bunch of idiots who think a synth-going raider is worse than a human raider or other evil people in the Commonwealth. So let's start out with the NCR, as they're the most fleshed out faction. One of the first quests you do for the NCR is clearing bugs from the road north of the Mojave Outpost. One thing you learn about the outpost is that Ranger Jackson can't spare troops to protect the caravan, so he hires you. You learn that the NCR higher-ups send most troops to McCarran or to the front lines, which is leaving the caravans and travelers in danger on the roads. Further in the game, you help Fort Forlorn Hope deal with the shortages of supplies, injured men in the Legion at Nelson. When you do this quest for the NCR, they are very much in better modes. One thing I might add is if you wipe out Nelson before doing this quest, the dialogue references this and the NCR will thank you. If you choose to side with the NCR, they are more willing to ally with their previous enemies. For instance, you can get the Brotherhood of Steel, which hates the NCR, to ally them, while every other faction will want them dead no matter what. Compare this to the Minutemen, which is the most likely faction to turn into an NCR-like nation in the future. The majority of quests you do is Radiant, not Ridden quests, while the NCR you're doing specific quests for specific reasons. You help the NCR clear the roads for the caravans. You help the soldiers at Forlorn Hope deal with the stalemate with the Legion at Nelson. And then you have the quest to fix Helios 1, which has several different outcomes. The majority of the Minutemen quests aren't like this. You go talk with the sellers at a location, then they send you to clear a location, or save prisoners from raiders, or help clear out a location for more sellers to move in. You do these quests and there isn't a unique dialogue in doing this. In Fallout 4, one of the worst inclusions in the game is the wheel dialogue system, as it is very limited. So while you can fill novel-length books full of information on these factions in New Vegas, you get barely information about the factions in Fallout 4. One of the main reasons people can believe in the Legion as the future of the Mojave is because Caesar is one of the most well-written characters of all time. Caesar sends you to deal with the Legion's alliances and enemies. From within the Mojave, for instance, Caesar sends you to deal with both the Omertas and the White Glove Society to cause further chaos for the NCR. He sends you to help the Omertas finish their plans to kill mass numbers on the Strip, as well as to get the White Glove Society to revert to cannibalism to ally with the Legion. The Institute is the closest faction to the Legion because they're both evil while hiding behind a mask of doing what is best for the human race. The Institute quests are kinda lacking when it comes to storytelling. One of their quests sends you to deal with the synth who took charge of a raider gang. Father tries to explain how synths are dangerous when they go rogue, but that one quest shows how shit the story writing is. They are trying to say that a fake human is more dangerous because they can become evil. Like that isn't new in a post-apocalyptic game. Caesar makes you feel confident in the Legion, while Father is supposedly such a smart character, while he explains that synths can go evil like normal humans can't, which is just making Father a terrible written character. Lastly, let's look at Mr. House. Mr. House is a recluse who uses robots as well as tribals to protect the strip. One of the quests you do for him is killing the Brotherhood of Steel because they would pose a threat to the Mojave he wants to build with a robotic army to hold power. He explains that there is no negotiating with them because they're technophiles that would declare war on Mr. House and would put up a decent fight but ultimately lose because the Brotherhood is significantly weaker and Mr. House would be at his peak. Compare this to a similar sentiment as the Brotherhood chapter in the Commonwealth thinks that the Railroad is a challenge they have to overcome in order to kill the final objective of the Institute. The problem with this is that the Railroad has shown to be incompetent and even childish to the point that they are barely a threat at all. The Brotherhood and the Mojave might be weaker, but they can still put up a fight against the NCR when they are outnumbered 10-1. I think that the Brotherhood would have more of a problem dealing with the gunners invading the airport over the Railroad when they fight the Institute. The quests that you do for the Railroad are very much similar to every other faction in Fallout 4. They pretty much only do Radiant quests, while having a few story quests that don't mean much of anything. The most important quests have you defeating the Brotherhood and the Institute as a whole, while saving as many synths as you can. So to start off, let's explain how Fallout 4's main story changes the Commonwealth. So depending on the ending, 1 to 2 factions will be gone from the game, as well as the faction you side with will take over several outposts across the Commonwealth. Let's go over the end sides because they're a terrible aspect of the game. So there are only 2 versions of this end sides. One where you side with anyone but the Institute and the other with the Institute. Now compare this to New Vegas, which seamlessly has end sides for almost every major quest location in the game. While in New Vegas you can't play after the end game, like in Fallout 4, I think that's a positive because the end sides are just so amazing and give game-defining events after the main quest is complete that changes the wasteland for better or worse. Fallout New Vegas end sides are very diverse. You have all companions having several slides. Locations from Good Springs all the way to Jacobstown have end sides, as well as several quest-related end sides. Every quest, location, and companion has several slides that differ depending on how you helped those companions or locations, or how you completed the quest. This video will be hours long if I went into full detail of every outcome, so let's cover the main ones. Siding with the NCR causes rule of law to return and the death of Mr. House and the Legion. Siding with Mr. House causes the NCR to pay heavily for water and electricity from New Vegas. For better or worse, the Mojave is independent from major nations, with Mr. House leading as an autocrat. If Caesar wins, the NCR would retreat from the Mojave, Mr. House would be dead, and the Legion would claim the dam in Vegas as for Caesar's capital. If you made it this far in the video, I'd like to thank you. This is my first video in this format, and I'd like to do more of them. If you liked this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe and comment on any questions you may have.